evening, everyone, and welcome to the PECB Quality Conference of 2022. My name is Rosie Bremetz. I'm a data strategist, and I'll be moderating this session. The title for this session is Keeping a Record, ISO 30301 as an Aid to Organizational Success. And with us today, we have Carlotta Pustello and Mohamed Farouk. Carlotta has extensive experience as an independent information, documents and records management expert and consultant. She has more than 35 years of experience in the organization of information, documents and records in the public, private and not-for-profit sectors, mainly in Spain and Latin America. Carlotta is also the convener of the ISO TC46 SC11 Working Group 8 Management System for Records, that have actually drafted the ISO 30301 series. And Mohamed Farouk. Mohamed is a seasonal entrepreneur, an experienced business leader with a proven track record of success in corporate and government market sectors, specialized in change in business performance. He's based in the United Kingdom, and he is CEO at Excelidia. So welcome, Carlotta and Mohamed.
Thank you, Rosie. Very good seeing you all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. Yeah, so very happy to be talking to all of you. Yeah.
Here we can hear the lovely birds chirping behind you. That's wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm in a place. I'm in an odd place. I was supposed to be back in the office, but the traffic, so I had to stop somewhere and get on to a place where I could have internet. Yeah, so sorry about it, but I'll make sure that I'll be on mute whenever I'm not talking. Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. It's the beauty of these virtual conferences that we can be wherever we are and still be active in these kind of conferences. Carlotta, how are you today?
Fine, thank you, Rosie, for your presentation, and good afternoon from Spain. Here is the afternoon, but probably people is attending from all over the world. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening.
Great. So should we start with some questions, and we'll start the conversation going. So I'll start with you, Carlotta. What is your understanding of what a record is?
Thank you for the question, because it's a controversial question, I think.
Yeah.
For me, record is information. Basically, record is information, but not any kind of information. It's the information that is received or produced in the transaction of business, and could be because it's the evidence of decisions taken, could be because it's the evidence of actions, or could be because it's an asset of the organization, because contain information about the know-how, or contain information about the strategy, or contain information about everything. But in this case also, the record can be in different media, different formats. Can be a document, because I think that every of us, when thinking a record, thinking a document, because we are always thinking in paper, and probably with the similar thing of a paper on a screen that could be a PDF. But a record could be a database, could be a message, could be everything that is information. And that is another thing that happens with the word record in English is it's very difficult to translate to other languages. At least in my experience, in my native language, that is Spanish, is very difficult. We don't have the difference between document and record, so we have always a problem with this. And in my experience, it's the same in French. It's the same with other people we work together in this working group in the ISO TC technical committee. And I can say that except for English, we in the other languages that I know, that there are not all the languages, but the people that is in the committee is the same problem. we have a problem with the translation of records. So what I normally do when I try to explain is just explain what is a record for me. So it's for that I am very thanks because you started with this question, because I think it's very important. So it's my point of view.
Yeah, and I think it's the metadata that's associated with the document, which is the information. So people coming from data would call it the metadata, and it's the information about the document. And that's very important to keep up.
But you can, metadata is not only about the document. Metadata metadata is data about the data. So that the record is all together. Metadata, data, and any other thing that can provide this evidence or this that is the information. At the end, is information. A record is information, and as we continue developing this new digital environment, we understand that the records are acquiring different formats, different new things that we never did in the past. As for example, we talk in the blockchain systems, we talk about the layers records, and their records is the same thing, and it's completely different thing that that a document or that traditional record. So the challenge for this management system standard that is 30301 is just to cover everything. It's trying to cover everything, any kind of record, and that is, I think, it's very powerful for this reason.
I agree. Let's jump. Thank you for that, Carlota. That was, even for me, that was very insightful and the clarity around metadata and data and the record, and how 30301 kind of encompasses everything. Very interesting. Mohammed, how can we avoid the problems of business as usual not connected to ISO 30301?
Yeah, just to get started before, I jump into the exact question, like Carlota said, it's a record is all about data. So in whatever format you have the data, and, which is possibly, formed for the purpose of running an organization or whatever is the purpose. So, it can have it in different forms. So what we do is that, as and I'm just coming to the question. So what we do is that, as and when the business grows, we tend to adopt more systems and more structures and more best practices. So, so I may go for a new standard, or I may go for a new framework because I want to improve my business performance, or I want to be in compliance with, a regulatory best practice. Or so what happens during this journey here is, I've got something called a business as usual, which is my daily business, which is my operational business. So we spend so much of time, making sure that, that is done right, which is more like the performance of the business. But what happens is that, all these policies and procedures and, everything, every piece of information which is formed for the sake of governance, compliance, risk, internal audit, and, everything else beyond the business as usual is generally neglected, and they are kept in two formats. One is, people who's got the money, they tend to buy multiple technology platforms, which does not really talk to the business as usual software systems. So, and companies who don't really take it seriously, they kind of manage it in spreadsheets. So I would possibly say that, okay, I've got 10 management systems which is owned by 10 different departments, but end of the day, which has got no connection to my business as usual. So those becomes more like the administration burden for the businesses. So what happens is that, even though you have one system or 10 system, it tends to go back to the same old people who's working, right? And if they are going as 10 different systems, on top of it, you've got a business as usual as well, that becomes a real big problem for the people, and, it becomes a real burden for the organization. So the best way to look into this is basically make sure that, the first question is that, if you're going for a new system, or even for a new information or a record, you really need to, think of the need of it. Why do you need it? So is it for the sake of improvising my processes or having efficient business process and improving my bottom line, or is it simply to have my, for me to be a part of all the tenders and my commercial reason? So you really need to make this, you really need to answer this question. So it is important that your management systems are ingrained or connected to your business as usual. So if you're forming your quality management system strategy and objectives, basically you need to make sure that how is it connected to your organizational objectives and your customer focus, and you're having more customers, right? So the simplest example for not having the organization connected to the management systems, so generally when we take the customer feedbacks, we can say that okay, we're always on 99.99, everything is green, right? So everybody's happy. But what happens is that when the finance or the procurement does, or the business does the customer retention analysis, you can see that okay, 30% of our top customers we have lost. We lost most of them. So where is the conflict? One side of the business says we are at 99.99, which is done by the quality department, and basically they do all the surveys and they present it to the CEO. But on the other side, the finance goes in and say that okay, this is the reality. Now where is the conflict? The simple reason is the business is not talking to the business as usual. So one of the things which you can do is that you can digitize the process, connect your processes and the process interactions, and to make it easier. Or you can simply have an integrated management system. There are multiple ways of doing it. The best way to do it is, I would say that you have a technology piece or not, simply what you need to do is that you need to list all your business processes and its impacts so that it becomes easier for you. So you've got all the processes portfolio in one place, and the generic controls and internal controls required for that. Then you assign the then you assign the a typical who's accountable and who's responsible for that. So using that, it would be kind of easy to manage. The question is that for next year, what impact it is going to give it to the business. Let's say if you have 10 management systems and you have done 60 audits, and so you've got 90 findings. What is that it is given to the business because of those audit findings? So you need to look into those things so that you can make sure that what system is really enabling you to grow, or are you really utilizing them in such a way that business is really benefiting out of it. So it's more of why are we going for a system, and what exactly are you looking out to have such a system. But integration makes it easier. Yeah, so that's just my thought. Yeah.
Fantastic. Carlota, was there something you want to add to that before I move on to the next question?
No, I basically agree. And what I can say is the vision of the ISO people from management system standards is exactly what Muhammad said. That is that in an organization there is not 10 management systems. There are only one, and probably with different aspects. And what you describe, this connection of different areas in the organization, I think is the back practice. When the quality management area is not connected with the business as usual, what I can understand that is a bad practice is not really an example to follow, because the management system are in general, all the standards for management system are to be integrated in the business of you as usual, and to improve the business as usual, not to have to work more because you want to implement a management system standard. Is just to have more efficacy and to have more efficiency. So that is the good point, I think, and that is what we try with the 30301, because I think this integrated approach is working very well with this standard.
So the idea is not to have it as an add-on, but have it embedded in the processes and have only one system and not many. What kind of which organizations commonly apply for the implementation of ISO 30301, Carlota?
Yeah, I can talk about my experience. That is not a universal experience, but I think that could be interesting to share with the audience. I have found a lot of interest in organizations that are in a process of digital transformation, because the transition from paper records to digital records are not easy at all. So it's where the organizations are looking for advice, guidelines. How can I do that? Because it's a general feeling of loss of control when you go to the digital environment. So I have some examples of organization that says that is the tool that is very useful for us in this process, and the process came from to a paperless, completely paperless environment. That is a way that a lot of organizations all over the world is now going. So I think that is one of the possible kind of organization looking that is. Could be any kind of organization, but with a common problem of to find some guidelines in this transition. And the other could be also organizations that have already implemented other management systems. Is that what we say with this integrated approach? As you probably know, all the management system standards has a sound requirements about documented information. It is like, you know, the management system is always based in documenting the system. So when we provide more guidelines on how to control and how to control this kind of information is always very interesting. So, and it's easier to implement 30301 when you have, for example, 9001, or you have 40,001, or you have 27,001, because it's a common understanding on what you are doing. That is the second kind of organization. And the third organization I can see is organizations where information is in the core of the business. For example, organizations by providing services about records and information for other organizations, or organizations that really the information they are not really managing other thing that not the more important thing for them is information. So I think that is the three cases I can share with you what I found.
Interesting. I had brought a company to 30301 standard. It was a construction company where documents were very, very important and the revisions had to be kept like in pristine order. And we found that the 30301 standard was an amazing way to get the company up into the right level and standard there. We have some questions from the audience, which I'd like to kind of bring them in as well. The first one is, does it depend on what type of record it is to determine the period it must be kept? Who would like to take this one?
I can say that is something that the ISO standard said that you have to analyze. Okay, so you have to analyze your process, your business process, to understand. It's not because the type of the record, it's because the type of the process. What is different is how you perform your business process and how you create the records for this business process. So it is not depending on the type of record. For me, it's depending of the performance of the business process that say that is what kind of records you need to keep. In the 30301, the first idea is you have to analyze your business process to determine what records need to be created, and that is not universal. You can have a similar business processes, and in your organization you need to keep some records, and in other could be another one, because it depending of your legal context or your jurisdiction, your business requirements, your context at the end.
Thank you. That's very clear. I hope that's answered the audience's question. And we have another one which I think goes to you. I'm not sure I understand completely this, but I'm gonna put it out there. It says, what ERP input with business as usual?
If I may take this, ERP is an enterprise resource planning software, like for people who have not heard of these terms, some parts of the world have not really used the term ERP, right? So it's basically a business as usual system which captures your operations, and it helps you to capture the business process flow and, like the workflow throughout the organization. So the question is, what's the question? It's question asked, can you read the question again?
What ERP input with business as usual?
Yeah, so the ERP as input depends on, it depends on your business, like what's your business? So if you are into healthcare, or if you are into manufacturing, so if you are into manufacturing, right from you receive your raw materials till you deliver your final, products, or products and services, and then you manage your customer service and the whole thing. So you capture the whole information, identifying the customer need and delivering the service and the product, that's your, with your operational flow that is captured in generally in the ERP systems, right? So management systems are brought in to make sure that, these things are done in a consistent manner and in an organized manner. So it's very simple. Management systems and, business frameworks, they always make sure that, we have the basics in place. It doesn't, ask you to touch the moon from day one. So the business as usual generally captures only your business process and how to manage those business processes. But when you add the management system on top of it, what happens is that, how can you do that more in a customer focused manner? When I say customer focused, your internal and external customers, and how can you do that in a consistent approach, making sure that, every time you deliver it based on your stakeholder needs and expectations. At the same time, you deliver it in such a manner that, you're considering all your customer feedbacks and outputs. So what happens is that, just practicing the operational business system using an ERP or a CRM or any other software suite, it would help you to do your process optimized, but it may not, you may miss the best practices, from different practices of, so let's say if I give you an example, when I start my business, I would probably say that, okay, I don't have a system established, I've got a business process, but, maybe quality management system, ISO 9001 would help me to, have the basics in place, right? So if I look at the seven principles that would help me to have the foundation laid down, right from the customer focus, till you have the relationship management in place, so everything else. So once I'm operational for 1 year or 2 years, I would say that, okay, my customers are gaining more confidence, so I need to make sure that, I need to have a strong information security management system. So I need to say that, okay, all my informations are controlled, all my customer data is protected. But at the same time, we may have things like Corona, COVID, or whatever thing we call it as. But, I need to make sure that, regardless of any major disruption, I've got a business continuity management system. So the more you add, you're making your business resilient and, making sure that, you're strong enough and your customers and your suppliers are gaining more confidence. And that's the whole purpose. But I'm not saying that, okay, just having an ERP, you cannot achieve it. You can always achieve it. But these management systems or ISO standards or any other business frameworks have designed, they have designed it in such a way that, let's say Carlota is part of a technical committee. She's an expert in that domain. That's why she's a part of that, right? So ISO chooses the best people, or the management frameworks when it's getting designed, they choose the best people around the world to make sure that this is designed in a simple and easier manner for a common businesses to practice across the world. So this is more of adding a lot of fuel, a lot of consistency, and a lot of standardization into your business. But so that's the best thing I can think of when it comes to the ERPs and the business as usual kind of a thing. Hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, so in the while you're explaining this, the one of the audience has kind of clarified, and he's asked, he or she has asked, what is the input of ERP with business as usual from the ISO 30301 perspective? And I think you've covered that.
Yeah, so it's basically whatever management system you have, please, this is just basically from my own experience. Please don't think too much about the name of that management system. Basically look at that management system and how it would complement your business. So if you have a strong 30301 or 30301, what it's going to help is that before you even thinking of having an information in place, do you really need to create such an information, even the need identification? So if you look at the controls of 30301, the first control it's talking about is basically telling that, okay, do you really need to create this piece of information, right? Is it really worth for you to have it? Have you gone through a need identification, or you're just creating information because you can just create it because so yes, I would say the simplest answer for the question would be, if you heard of the word called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out, so if you produce quality information into your funnel, you get quality output, right? So into your ERP, if quality input goes in, quality output comes out, so that's always the case, and the business performs better.
Thank you. Thank you, Mohammed.
I can add that if you an ERP or which all other information system that you have in the organization, you have their information that you can define as records that then you need to keep, because it's important for your organization to keep these records. Then the ISO 30301 could be applied to this information in this system. It's not depending in which system is the information. It's independent of the nature of the information. And then also following the methodology, but because at the end the management system standard is a methodology. It's not something that you have to do the business in the same way in one organization to the other, but provides you with a guidelines and methodology to understand which is important and select what is important as information that you want to keep, and what information is you are producing information without knowing that is important. Not, and normally in the organizations we produce more information than we really need. So 30301 can help you to say, in my ERP is too much information that really we don't need, and just to keep the information we need. And probably we need information for the performance of the business, but we don't need to keep this information all over the time, just a piece of this information. That is the kind of thing that can be and in this case ERP is as other information systems in my point of view.
Okay, thank you. Then we've got some quite a lot of questions coming in from the audience. So let's try to keep our responses brief, so we can cover all of them as much as possible. So I was going to ask you about 30302, Carlota, but before that, we have a question from the audience asking, what is the difference between ISO 30301 and ISO 30300?
Oh, so 30300 is a vocabulary standard. It's just the vocabulary standard that covers all the definitions that are used in not only in the 30301 and 302, but it covers all the standards coming from the same technical committee that is called Records Archive Management, that is from the publication of 303, the second version of 30300, and that it was in 2019. That is, we're trying to implement the same vocabulary in all the standards coming from the same technical committee. Yes, for the sake of consistency and for the sake that we are talking always of the same concepts of terms. So 30300 is just a vocabulary standard.
Okay. And 30302, which are the guidelines for implementation of ISO 30301, they're recently published. Can you explain what the content of those are?
Yes, the second version of 30302 was published last week. So
Okay.
it's really a new, and that is a very interesting standard because it's a structure, yes, in the same way of the 30301. So when you want to implement the requirements of the 30301, you can go to the same chapter or section of the 30302, and then you find examples on implementation and guidelines for implementation, how you can do it. And also we have, when you started to implement these requirements, then you have some inputs at in the 30302 is listed the inputs you need to implement these requirements, and also you have the outputs, what you produce like an output of implementing these specific requirements. Remember that the requirements in the ISO standards are identified by the verb that is shall. Anytime that is a shall is a requirement. So that means that anytime you have a shall, is something that you have. Probably you can have it, and then you don't need to implement. Sorry, you don't need to implement anything more than you have. But also you say, oh no, I don't have this shall. I am not compliant with this shall, so I have to implement. So in the 30302, you have some examples of outputs, how you can demonstrate or you can say that this requirement, or all the requirements in this chapter are implemented.
That's fantastic. So it seems like this conference, this chat is actually one of the first mentions of 30302, if it was just published last week.
Carlota, if I may add, yeah, Carlota, if I may add, so the 30302, it will have the keyword called should, right? So that is like good to have kind of a thing. So,
Yeah.
if you look at the action verbs, so 30300 talks about the terms and terminologies, and 30301 talks about what needs to be done, which are the requirements, and 30302 how this needs to be done. So it's a very simple thing. So what needs to be done is used by shall, and how this needs to be done is generally used by should. It's not mandatory, but this is how this needs to be done. Correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Correctly is correct. And 30302 is not adding more requirements. It's just explaining how you can achieve to implement the requirements in 30301. And with a lot of examples from different places. So I think that is very interesting for that.
So it would be, it makes it easier for companies when you see examples of other places to implement 303.
Mm.
Okay. And we have a question from the audience which kind of links into this, and it says they ask what modalities need to be put in place to ensure that organizations comply with ISO 30301 in a nutshell. I mean, there must be quite a few, but just in a nutshell, what would the top three modalities do you need to be put in place for 30301?
Yes, it's very difficult to answer this question because we have, I don't remember, but more than 100 shells. So it's difficult to say what are the three key ones. But I think that if we are used to the management system standards, what is important to say is that all the management system standards from 2014 are having the same structure, and and all of them also have the same requirements. The general requirements are the same. So the test and the sentences that in which is expressed the requirement is exactly the same in 30301, 9001, 40001, 27001. So that means that the common requirements for a management system are the same requirements. So you need to put in place the PCD Act, the PCDA methodology. That means that you have to start to understanding the context. Then you need to plan what you are going to do, and then you have to check. That is, you have to check the performance evaluation, and that is when you close the improvement cycle. And that is the same from the 30301 that from the 9001 than the from 27001. But of course, so people say, so what is different? What is different from one management system standard from the other? And that is that we call the operational part. That is completely different from one standard to other. So in this operational part that is typically and completely different in 30301, that we have some requirements on this, and the requirements on this are based in what we say that are the records processes, that more than business processes are activities to be embedded in the business processes. The records controls, they are the instruments you use, but to better improve implementation of the record processes. And then what we call the record systems, that is the tools that help you, the information systems that help you to implement this, and even more if you are in a digital environment. To manage digital records or electronic records, you need information systems. That is a must. So we have some requirements on this also. So
thank you for that, Carlota.
I hope that I answer more or less.
Yeah, if I may add, Rosie, yeah, so I think this is very important. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping in. Yeah, so it's for me, the most important thing, I'm not an expert in record management systems. So the most important thing in this is that, right from your thinking of creating an information till you disposition that information, you archive it or you destroy it, you have to identify the categories of information system, information or document categories and portfolio. Then make sure that you identify the life cycle for each of them. That's the most important thing you have to do. And you should have you should have a portfolio of your information or your information assets, so that, and you have to categorize them, subcategorize them, and make sure that you have given the right kind of ownership. Because if you're a software company, and if you're valued at $1 billion, probably a source code would be valued at $600 million. So that piece of information, who owns it, what kind of intellectual property? Because earlier days it used to be the products and services and the brand which carries the value. Now it's that the brand value is carried on the intellectual property of the organization. So it becomes very, very critical.
Yeah. And what are the positive, and what would be the positive business impacts of having a strong 30301 implementation? Maybe the both of you can give us both aspects from one like Mohammed, like a more practical implementing side, and Carlota, more technical side. What would be why would businesses want to, apart from the protecting the intellectual property, what would be a positive business impact for implementing 30301?
You want to go first, Mohammed?
I would say, the biggest positive impact would be, how well the organization structure is designed, and the business processes are captured, and the process flows are captured, and the policies and procedures captured. And I would say you need to run an impact assessment on all your critical processes once you identified. By having this kind of a process flow, or by having this kind of a procedure, or by having these many service level agreements and contracts, what business impact did it have on me? Did I have a compliance deviation where I ended paying up, where I ended paying $100,000, and I was blacklisted, or like my brand reputation was affected? So you can have positive and negative impact on your business, right? So, and where else I would say that I could also have a lot of positive impact where I'm capturing my customer feedbacks and complaints on a regular basis and making sure that those are being addressed. And just because I have them in an organized manner, just because of that, just because I've got my right kind of workflows defined, I'm making sure that I've got my customer satisfaction enhanced, and I've got my bottom lines improved. So it could have a lot of performance, and the real business benefits were in terms of financial impact, in terms of reputational impact, and it could also have a lot of compliance and regulatory impact, where you say that okay, or even the contractual impacts and contractual obligations. So now, how would you make sure that you are in track of your business, or you are completely communicating these needs and expectations to your employees and your stakeholders without having this information captured in a real good manner? So I'm talking about more from a practical angle, and Carlota can probably give the technical side of it. I'm not that good on that domain. Yes. So
Oh yes, but not only the technical side. I think that
yeah.
we have to understand that probably information, and I said that records is information, is the only resource that we have too much in an organization. Okay, so we produce a lot of organization, a lot of information, and it's not as financial resources that always we need more. It's not like human resources that always we need more, but the information, the problem is we need less. So what is the principal benefit we can have for implementing and systematically way to manage information? Is just to be efficient, to be efficacious, efficient, yes, because what you need is just to manage exactly what you need and not to have too much things. I think all of us have the experience that you are looking for something that you need, that you have the information that you have in your organization, and you cannot find where exactly it is. And when you find the information, you find 7 or 5 or 7 or 9 version of the same thing, and you don't know exactly which one is the right one. And that is a source of problems in an organization from any point of view. I can say that coming from efficacy and efficiency, you can talk also about transparency depending what kind of organization. Transparency could be very interesting for your market, or if you are in the public sector, transparency is a must. And also you can say that you are protecting your possibly litigations or future litigations if you keep your information. So benefits are so many, but depending of your context, for you can be more important one of the benefits or the other, because not every organization is in the same context. So I think, but the main, if I can say this generally for all kind of organization, is manage a resource that is information. That is, the problem is we have too much. Is very interesting for any kind of organization. Then, and keep you can get some help, yes, to think about what is really important, what information is really important, and what information you don't need to keep, you don't need to care, and you don't need to waste a lot of money buying more space in my disk, because I need more space because I am not able to control what I am producing. And then at the end we have to change our information system, and we suddenly lose everything that is in the information system that we have decommissioned. So what is that is a very bad control. So at the end we have a lot of information that we don't need, and we lose a lot of information that we need. So if ISO 30301 can help to in some level to this, to fix this, not to lose the information you need, and not to keep the information you don't need, I think is a big benefit for all kind of organizations.
Well, if that doesn't convince companies to implement 30301, I don't know what does. Thank you for that. So there's been a question around why do organizations need multiple management systems, and we also want to look into why in addition to, for example, ISO 9001 and ISO 27001. Carlota, you kind of already touched upon this earlier around it's depending on the operations, right? So why would organizations need, if we were to answer the question of one of the audience, it says, why would organizations need multiple management standards? Why would you have to go, what would be the motivator to go for an additional standard? Is it business excellence? Is it to kind of cover all aspects of the operational side? What would be the motivation behind it?
I think the motivation is that you want, or the organization wants to put the focus in different aspects of the management system. Understanding that the management system is only one, then you can put your efforts or your focus on quality of processes, for example, quality of processes, and with the idea of your client service, no, or client focus on clients. That is the 9000. Then you can put your focus or your main important to the quality environment, that is 40,000. And then in another organization, the information security is a key question, and then you go to the 27,001. And if you have an organization that really have an important issues with the information, then that is the reason to implement ISO 30301. So that is what I see. Of course, is you can implement this methodology, that is the management system standards, and then it's like you have like plugins, plugin for quality, plugin for environmental quality, plugin for energy, because we have another management system for manage energy, and it could be it's really, you are not implementing different management systems, you are implementing one management system with different aspects, covering different aspects. And that is easy to do now, because we have, as I said before, all the management system standards have the same structure and the same requirements. So if you have ISO 9001 covered, then the new requirements implementing 30301, there are really a small amount of new requirements different from the ISO 9001.
Got it. Is there anything you would like to add, Mohammed, to that?
I think it's I completely agree with what Carlos has said, and I would simply say that it simply helps you to cover different functions of the business. So if you look at your health and safety of your people, and your stakeholders, you would probably look at ISO 45001, right? And if you look at innovation, you would probably look at the best practices of ISO 56002, which helps you to look at what kind of innovation processes, what kind of is it incremental innovation or is it disruptive innovation, what innovation portfolio can I have. So it completely depends on, so whoever asked the question, I would simply put the question back. You should know the answer why you need this management system. But like Carlota said, it is not many management systems. It is one business management system which has different domains or different specialities. So you could say I've got 10 ISO management systems in place, but that would act as one business management system to make sure that you achieve your business goals, and making sure that you are in conformance, as well as your business performance is based on your actual plans. So it simply helps you to plan and execute the plans as planned, and then check a planned versus an actual, which is you're doing a planned versus an actual, and improve from what you exactly planned. So I've seen organizations I worked with organizations in the Middle East who worked with who's got 34 ISO standards, 8 different frameworks. Altogether it was 42 plus another 4 regulatory requirements. So major 46 frameworks all in one go, but they are managing it because they're seeing the benefits of it. They did not do it all in one day. They did it over a period of last 20 years or 30 years, and they're seeing the benefit, which is why they're enhancing the one business to the next level. And why you have to do it, basically depending on two reasons why somebody would go for a management system. One, by force, because you're a contractor, or if you have to be a part of a new project, that they say that, okay, you have to have this system. You go as a force. The other reason is you're more committed to your business, you're more committed to your stakeholders, you want your business to be successful, following the best practices and basics, and you want to have an efficient processes in place. So these are the two reasons people go for management systems and best practices. Yeah.
And from my experience, it's not just about reaching the standard, it's because it's a continuous improvement best practice. You're all like, every time you're audited, you find out where you did well, where you didn't, and what you're going to do to make it better for the next audit. So it forces the company to continuously strive towards business excellence and optimizing all aspects of the business. And I guess the more management, like the more standards you put in, the more you focus on different aspects and you bring everything together. So from my experience, I before I had any experience in this, I thought it was just, oh, you reach the standard and that's it. But it's the continuous, it's the best practice, it's the continuous improvement of every aspect of the business, which is so great. So we have about 9 minutes left. I'll see if in the meantime anyone from the audience will give us their a final question to answer. But I would like both of you to kind of give to kind of close off. So we talked about how ISO 30301 can act as an aid to organizational success, and I think we've covered a lot of aspects to that, which is really, I'm sure it's helpful to many who are listening. What you would give to the audience to take away from today? Because we're moving towards a digital age. We're moving toward most companies are moving towards digital transformation, and how can they best utilize a standard like ISO 30301 for their future to stay ahead of the game? What would be the different aspects each one of you would give? I can start with you, Carlota.
I think that is really what we were talking today. Everything that we talk today, I think that is the idea of how organizations can use ISO 30301. That I can make an, if I try to make a sentence of everything that we have talked, I say that 30301 is not the aim, is the tool, is the tool that you need to as Muhammad said, that what do you want for your organization, probably to be better, and with this idea of continuous improvement. And then any management system standard, and the 30301 it is, and in a very interesting aspect that is information in this digital area. I think that that is the thing that can help. Because this kind of standards need to be helpful. If they are not, please don't implement it, because that is the idea. It's not implement by implement. It's not the aim. The aim is not to have the seal. Is not to have the certification. Please, I don't. It is great because you need to have more your reputation, or you want the seal just to be a contractor that electable for a process. But this is the second reason. I think the first reason is just to manage your information better, and I think that is as an aspiration that is in all our organizations, and more if we are now living in the information society. So that is the key question for me.
Thank you, Carlota. Mohammed?
Yeah, I would say I would like to end the session with a tough note. To be honest, don't think that okay, I'm rude on it, because if you're not taken your information systems or information management system seriously, please don't wait for something really big to hit you, because I have seen organizations taking these lightly in the space of GDPR, in the space of all the information security regulations. And believe me, if you have not considered the list of all the required information pieces in your business, and if you don't have a list of them, and I would like to also connect it with the information security management system ISO 27001. You need to identify the confidentiality, integrity, the correctness, and the availability of this information as well, which are the core principles of ISMS or ISO 27001. Believe me, the kind of reputational and regulatory as well as your brand, going down, you may end up closed down. You may end up, bankrupt tomorrow. And believe me, I'm not joking. This is because we have so much of customer information and third-party information, and we don't really know how do we have to manage it. Please make sure that you consider them, you make a list of that, because many a times we are on an advisory mode, we are on more of an advising mode. I would say that this is kind of a threat for all of us, including me, in the business, if we don't take it seriously. So please make sure that at least you would remember me, like when you do that. So I would say that okay, this is very, very important. Please don't take me lightly. I have seen, I will give an example before I wind up. So when I've done an information security audit, so the chief of auditor, he said, okay, I don't have time for your positive notes. I know my company does extremely well. Please tell me what's important. I said, you've got $100,000 fine coming up. He said, you did an ISO audit, how do you know about money? I said, you've got a regulatory impact, regulatory requirement. If you don't, if you're not in compliance before the end of the month, you'll be in the newspaper for all the bad reasons, because it's a public company. At the same time, I don't know what's going to be the reputation of the organization. So then like that's a wake-up call. Please don't wait for this to happen. So it's very, very important. I'm sorry to be ending the session this way, but I think this is a need. Yeah.
I think no one will forget you for that.
I'm sorry about it. Yes.
It needed to be said. It needed to be said. Okay. Well, I think that's a wrap. Unless there's anything Carlota or Mohammed, you want to add, I'll end the session here. Thank you very much for your input, and I hope we've answered, as far as I'm aware, we've answered most or all of the audience's questions. Thank you.
Yeah, just one point before we wind up. I would say if anybody wants to reach me, I think you can share my email IDs with them. And if anybody is looking into digital transformation of the management systems and business frameworks in a scalable mode, we can always discuss. There is no silver bullet with us, but there's always better ways to look at finding the solutions together. Yeah, especially on the digital transformation, including the likes of AI and blockchains and extra stuff. Yeah, so that would be amazing. Thank you very much, Rosie and Carlota. A lot of exciting learning this afternoon for me as well. Yeah.